Dawson Rider Wiki.
Hey YouTube, Dawson Rider here with my review of Lupinranger vs. Patranger episode 31. I'm recording from over here today and these are uneven and it bothers me. I just decided, you know, change of scenery. Sometimes I'll record from here because I felt like it. I don't know, it just felt right. It's like bright, it's comfortable. I can rest my hand here. I can never rest my hand. What do I do with my hands? Anyway, about the actual show, Lupinranger vs. Patranger was really good this week. I mean, I really liked last week's episode, but this week also I thought was a really good episode because it both worked as kind of like a standalone story, but also a great lead into this multi-part story that we have going on. And it was a Patranger focused episode, so you know, fans of Patranger that are upset the Lupins have been getting more focus should be happy. Primarily focused around Tsukasa. It was basically that classic, if you've watched PR or Sentai, basically if you've watched more than one Power Rangers or Sentai series, you've probably come across the "is this monster good" trope episode, where like one of the Rangers kind of befriends a monster and then the others are like, "No, monsters are bad!" And they all sound like Guilmon. They're like, "Oh, Takatorman breads." I don't know why. Guilmon always shows up in these episodes. He wasn't in this one though. I guess they couldn't get him. Well, I don't even know what I'm talking about, guys. But you know what I mean. Like, so this is a pretty classic episode and it was in the form of a Gangler. Well, actually that's right. I was like, that sounds weird. I'm like, oh no, that's the real name. Basically wanting to defect. And we got the mecha battle done, or the first part of it at the top with Lupinrangers in it, so, and we got 3 collection pieces, and the first one was, all 3 collection pieces were obvious things. There's been many collection items that have, been obvious previous Sentai things, but these 3 were like the most obvious of obvious town. Like, the first one was, Ranger Changer, I can't remember the name of it, but you know, the Dino Thunder Morpher. Ranger Changer sounds nice though, it just sounds so pleasant. And then we got the Magiphone and the Deck Ranger license. But anyway, like that's what we start off with. And basically you have this Gangler that wants to defect and it's like, he's wanting to talk but won't talk until he gets like a deal. And it leads to these kind of amusing scenes of like interrogation techniques, you know, like good cop, bad cop, pat cop. And eventually, you know, leads to Tsukasa winning him over and offering him the deal, and it's like this whole like, oh, I bet he's not even really defecting, it's probably just a trick. And like Tsukasa gets him to talk and gets him a deal, and like Noel's trying to get the collection item, and he's talking with Lupinrangers a little bit about it, but the Lupinrangers were honestly barely in this episode. They were at the beginning, they were in one scene with Noel, like in the middle, and then at the very end, they like literally show up. But you know, so it was kind of, it kind of played off a little bit of the mistrust from last week of Noel. I think I mean, I don't think the Lupinrangers are like BFF trust, here's my account numbers, but I think the Patrangers are a little bit more pushbacky, or at least they were. Pushbacky, that's a technical term. You know, so it plays off that a little bit, and then after like, you know, she's like, oh, this isn't your jurisdiction for the French branch or whatever, the French. Noel calls in a favor. He's like, Tsukasa was mean to me, tell her to stop. And he gets him transferred, and it kind of comes off more like, oh, he just wants to get the collection piece, you know, and again, that classic trope of, is the dude good or not? But then it ends up that the collection piece that's inside him actually, like, basically reverses your state of being. Like, so this dude's evil, collection pieces in him makes him good, assuming it would have done vice versa. I kind of liked how, I'm sure it was intentional, that the painted over Deca license had the innocent symbol on it, just because that made sense for making him seem innocent, because like, basically he's like, oh, you're so nice to me and helped me, here's the collection item, and then he instantly went evil. I thought it was actually really cool, because it could have gone one of 2 ways. Tsukasa could have been right, and he was good all along, and the Patrangers, the other ones, learned a valuable lesson. Or, he was actually evil all along, and Tsukasa learned some sort of valuable lesson. But it was kind of both. Like, his good guy act wasn't an act. I mean, it was like a spell or whatever you want to call it. But I mean, he wasn't trying to deceive her on purpose. But also, it was kind of just, it wasn't like the most revolutionary thing, but I liked the way it played out. It wasn't exactly clean. It was little bits of both potential outcomes that you usually see from these sort of things. So I really dug that. And it also, like, Noel knew what it was. And so it was kind of neat to see, too, that it wasn't just Noel being Noel and trying to get the collection item and being a little bit more Team Lupin leaning. It was also not as clean. He like knew what was going on. He was just kind of looking out for her. So yeah, that was cool. And then we discovered that this is all part of, what's her name, like Cash? I didn't even know her name before this episode. The villain, the fancy music comes on. The main female villain, the fancy music always comes on when she makes someone bigger. That sounded so weird. But it's funny because they're like, oh my god, it was Cash. I'm like, who? And then they showed her. I'm like, oh yeah, her, the blue one. That's racist. I think he's blue, or she's blue. Anyway. But yeah, like she's basically been experimenting so that she can make this like chimera gangler with a bunch of different safes in it that's super strong, and it's got this main one which I believe, oh no, it wasn't the Magi, was it the Magiphone? No, it was the Gokai Cellular. No, that's the Mobirates. There's too many changers in my head, and especially when you have to remember 2 names for every one of them practically. That's the one, it like neutralizes other Lupin Collection items. So they do Yugo, and then they're like no-go because he, you know, neutralizes the power. So that's interesting. She adds even another save to him and he grows all big, and it's kind of this dire cliffhanger into next week, which looks like we're gonna be having them working together again in some capacity, but Keiichiro's gonna, you know, push against it because he's gonna be fighting Noelle. But this was a strong episode. As I said at the top, I really liked that this was kind of, even before we did the sort of, you know, here's the Chimera, we're kind of doing a 2-parter, more story-focused thing. I liked the individual episode. I thought it was good for the Patrangers, a good Tsukasa episode. Again, I liked that it was kind of a classic Sentai trope, but it wasn't like so clean-cut. It was a little bit different. I really enjoyed it. I would like to see more episodes like that for them. And I like that it functioned both as kind of an individual story, but also was a really good lead-in to next week's. Like, I felt the stakes were really high, and I like also that it has like the villains, you know, doing something other than just the week-to-week villainy. So yeah, I really like this episode a lot. I would give it an 8.5. I'm quite looking forward to next week because I think it'll be a good one. Not sure if it'll be the one where we finally sing Kumbaya and the identities are found out, but I think it's going to be interesting, and we're getting to some of the stuff we've been seeing in like the scans and the toys and stuff, so hopefully some interesting developments ahead. Anyway, that's about it. Until next time, don't forget, like, comment, subscribe, and of course don't forget to climb the steps and ring that bell so you can get the notifications for all my videos. Dawson Rider, signing out.